Hello and welcome to Technically Speaking. We are back and we're here with a guest. We have Eric Ma here from our platform team. Eric, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Dara. Like you said, my name is Eric Ma, and I am a software engineering manager at Unqork. I manage the creator experience uh, team that is part of the Create team. And then I am also currently the Caregivers Employee Resource Strategy Group Engagement Co-Chair. Previously, also a vice president and a president and a researcher for caregivers. Um, but we like to spread the jobs around so folks get to experience different aspects. And then really briefly, like before I was a software engineering manager here, I was also a senior solutions architect, firstly, and then a staff solutions engineer.
It was great when Eric was a solutions architect. We got to work together on some
Yeah,
projects.
not just
Um,
some projects, like some pretty fun ones.
Huge.
Cupid for New York City, right? That was pretty great.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what made you want to switch from being an architect to a solutions engineer and now software engineer? I think that's an
Sure.
interesting.
Like joining Unqork, it was a lot of fun and a lot, very interesting work working as a solutions architect, right? Working with clients. And when I did that, I got to learn about this wonderful Unqork platform that we have. And, I saw parts where wanted to make improvements and just, influence the trajectory of where Unqork was going. So, one easy way for me to do that was to become a staff, a solutions engineer on a team that was building tools for Unqork with Unqork. Um, and so that was a lot of fun, getting to help build out some of the tools that I was already using. And then from there, I wanted to get even deeper, right? And so I was enjoying so much the aspect of my job that was working with people primarily. So I was able to leverage that along with my technical background to become a engineering manager in the platform team itself. So helping to build out, um, as it's amazingly hard to describe the team that I manage without using the words in the description itself. So the creator experience team works on the creator experience, right? So I hate doing that, but it is really the best way to describe us. We don't own anything in one thing in particular, but we work overall just trying to take all the pain points that a user of Unqork might have and make them go away.
That's amazing. And one of the things that you and I have spent a lot of time talking about as you've made these moves is how does a feature in our platform become a feature, right?
Sure.
How does it go from my brain as a creator all the way to something I can experience in our platform? Could you talk a little bit about that path?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. And you can see, if I lean correctly, this is my friend, the Bill, right, from Schoolhouse Rock, How the Bill Becomes a Law, because that's what pops into my head when I think of when we say how a feature becomes a feature, right? There's a process. It's oftentimes fun along the way, sometimes a little painful. Um, but yeah, I think like you mentioned, it starts oftentimes with the creator, right? So you are sitting there and you're like, wow, I really wish I could do this, or I wish um, Uncork would tell me this about what I'm working on. And so that often starts a little kernel of thought, and you want to give Uncork feedback, right? Whether it's you who works for Uncork or one of our clients who is using it, they can very easily go to the Unqork Community Hub, which I know you've had Danny on. He's probably mentioned it before. Um, community.unqork.com. I think yes, that's totally it. Community.unqork.com, right? So, but if you don't have that memorized, like I kind of do, you can go directly in the platform, right? If you're in Unqork, you can click the little question mark. It's always in the lower right hand corner, and give platform feedback right there. And it although it might seem like you're, I don't want to submit a feature request to this faceless, you know, web page, it really does get in front of people, right? And it goes from there. It goes directly into an automated system in which people will then go and review people on our product team, right? A lot of people may think. I actually just asked my team this morning because we always have like a fun icebreaker question for my team in the morning, like, what do your friends and family think that you do for a living? What do you do during the day? And a lot of it just boiled down to like, I type all day, right? But you know, software engineers don't just work by themselves. So the product team is a very important aspect of software development and feature development, where they have all these ideas that they would like to make, some of which come from user feedback. And so once you've said like, hey, I really wish I could do, you know, I could have this feature, it goes in front of them, it gets commingled in along with all the stuff that they want to work on. But they also don't just stream up these things, right? Um, some of them they do, but they'd be hard pressed to get anyone else to want to do it if they don't have some sort of backing information or data supporting that people actually want this, right? So some of it comes from user feedback. If enough people submit the same feature request, like we'd be pretty dumb to not look at it at least and try and integrate it into what we want to work on. But then also they'll do their own user research. If they have an idea and they want to see if people actually want it, they'll sit down with folks and say, hey, here's this mock-up, here's some screenshots. How do you feel about this? Is this going to be useful? Let's talk about it, right? And not just expert users, but people from all sorts of demographics, right? They want to get a wide sampling of folks and feedback, right? So that all happens. User research and mock-ups and getting people to work through prototypes, all sorts of things. And so then the user research stuff and the user feedback goes through product. Then product decides, okay, these are the fun things that we want to work on this year. How do we go about doing it? Or maybe here's some things that are super high priority and we need to insert this throughout the year as we're working. Um, but yeah, so they work on that. Then they work with us in engineering and like, okay, cool. Here are these things that we love to work on. How feasible are these things, right? From a technical side, let's talk about it. And we have a discussion, some back and forth, and we figure out what it is that we can actually work on. And we work out priorities, right? Something may be high priority, something may be low priority. Um, Maybe we need more engineers, right, to do all the things that we work on this year. Do we have that sort of budget to grow the teams and or shuffle people around, right? There's all sorts of fun considerations there. Um, and then past that point, right, we have once we've decided the things that we're going to work on, how we're going to work on it, and then it comes down to the teams, uh, and we take these features that have come down to us, and we start to break them down. Engineers will take a look. Excuse me. Decide if we need to do some technical discovery before breaking them down into units of work. Um, and once that's done, then product and engineering work together to come up with what are called user stories or user journeys, right? Uh, as a user, I would like to be able to create a button on the screen, right? That's a very, very simple user story that we can then take and use as a unit of work, add some technical details, and put it in a bucket for any of our team members to say, okay, cool, let's work on that. Um, but it's not just one at a time, right? We create a huge bucket with a lot of work in it that's possible to do. And then we here at Unqork, we practice agile methodology and Scrum, right? And so there's a lot of, if you do any sort of work in technology, you've probably heard those terms before. Um, but we definitely try and do that. We try and stay, you know, practice the agile methodology. We have 2-week sprints. Um, and a sprint is basically the amount of time in which you're going to plan for the work that you're going to do, right? And so as a team, we're like, okay, cool. This next 2 weeks, what is our goal? What are we going to try and get done? Uh, and then from that goal, let's take the work that we have prepped and put it in our sprint. Uh, take into account all the things that we want to get done, the people that we have on the team, work that could be done in parallel, all sorts of considerations there. Making sure we have enough time for QA and testing and stuff like that. Yeah, and then the team goes crazy, getting the work done, and then we roll out into releases. Um, Here at Unqork, we'd like to have releases that go out to clients as opposed to like constant, uh, constant rollouts and deployments. Uh, since Unqork is sort of like a product that people use, right? Uh, so people like to know, like, okay, I know that version 67 is coming out next week. I know that we need to plan accordingly, etc. And as you know, Dara, you get to work with clients directly. Clients like to have some sort of predictability in mind, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, so
Absolutely. And even as internal clients, we like some predictability too.
exactly. Whereas in engineering, we like to get stuff done and out so we can get feedback and then work on it if we need to change it or improve it. So it's a happy medium that we try and strike between rapid iteration and having some sort of predictability um, involved there. Because I've definitely worked in places where releases are every hour on the hour, right, or
Yeah,
whenever. So here we try and operate a little differently, and we've actually made a lot of strides recently in changes for release predictability and things like that, which is pretty exciting.
it's
Um,
amazing.
but yeah,
And
that's kind of like a loose timeline of how features become actual features in the product, right?
absolutely. And you and your team just released a new feature recently. Can you tell us a little bit about it and how it fit into the process that you just described?
Sure. So yeah, something that my team released recently is a long acronym. It is the Real-Time Configuration Analysis Module Outline, RTCAMO. Um, as much as we hate acronyms, we can't get around it sometimes. But yeah, so some folks who are using Unqork may know that there is a UDLC feature called configuration analysis. It's where if you are managing a product, an application that is being built in Unqork, or just maybe a solutions architect, it's a generally recommended that you order a configuration analysis report for your application on a regular basis, so you have an idea of the health and status of your application, right? As far as best practices go. It's something that if you're a software developer, your development environment normally tells you, right? Like whether it's a code linter or um, it's your debugger or whatever is telling you like, hey, maybe you shouldn't. Now I'm blanking on an example, but like, hey, you shouldn't use that semicolon, or this is maybe an old style, right? You should do this updated style instead. Uh, a common example for Unqork which comes from the earliest days of Unqork is like that maybe you should have the single click button checkbox checked off, right? So you don't to disallow your users from clicking a button multiple times. Um, as an example, as a configuration analysis report. Um, but like that's got some turnaround time, right? Ordering that report, when you remember to do it, you submit the report, the request for a report. I think there's a stated like 48-hour turnaround time. I don't even know if we're still doing these or not. But right, and then you get back the report, and then and it's this big spreadsheet, and you're trying to go through it. Um, so what about, can we do that in real time, right? As you're building in your module, can you get those reports now, right? As you're working, just like you would if you were a software developer writing code? And the answer is yes, with the new real-time configuration analysis feature. So now in your module outline on the right-hand side of your module builder, you will have a set of reports. Right now it's a subset of tests, but we'll be slowly rolling out new tests as we go on throughout the next few months. Um, and so this was something that was pretty exciting for my team to work on. We originally given a version of it, but we were like, okay, cool. This is not real time enough. Can we make it better? And so first, our product manager, Noah, comes to us and says, hey, you know, here's this feature. This is the desired output, right? Here's all the tests we want to do. It needs to be in the outline. When you click on a test result, it should bring up a modal, right? A little dialog box that says here's the error. If you click on the error, you can now open up the component settings modal, right? All these paths, all these user stories we had to build out, because it's interesting when you have to think about how you want your software to work before it exists, right? It's especially with something as so complicated as building Unqork, right? We're literally building something for other people to build software, building software for software to be built. So there's a lot. There's so many possible paths you can go down as a user. So we needed to work together with product and with design, right? Because we have designers too, to go through and decide what are these paths, how do we get there, and part of the agile and iterative portion is uh, we don't want to design the entire thing all at once and plan out all that work, because we don't necessarily know what's going to be worth for our users until they've started using it, right? So that's the age old discussion of do you design the whole thing or do you work agilely, right? Uh, and you know, rapidly iterate and stuff like that. So that's why we have just in your module builder, you have your test results. Um, and yeah, and so the team worked on it. They got it out, and then same thing. A subset of users is getting to use it right now. We're slowly We've expanded to the second cohort of folks that are using it, and overall, we're iterating on the feedback. We're not going to say we're 100% bug free. We're working out a bug or two, and so far feedback is good. And then immediately what we're working on is getting closer to that report, right? Because having it in real time is great, but we also want to have feature parity with anything that we might be replacing, right? So now that if you are that manager or business analyst or higher up that wants to look at the health of your application as a whole and not just look at every single module, right? Because we have folks with hundreds of modules in an application. um, we want to be able to present that data for you in a summarized way. So that's coming up next, right? Along with at the same time offering more tests um, that will provide feedback for you on the health of your application.
That's amazing. And what was your favorite part of the dev process for this feature?
So my favorite part was probably the team when the team figured out how to speed things up, right? So originally, when our data team was running these tests on demand, on order, right, and it took a 48-hour turnaround, uh, those tests probably took somewhere around like 10 seconds each, right, to run a particular test. Now we have it down into like the milliseconds, right? So that moment when you're pretty sure something can be done, right? And the team actually does it and figures it out. Like, cool, we can now 100% do this the way we want it to. Here's the proof of concept. Great. Now we can now we can turn it into a real feature, right? That was pretty exciting, that in that early phase.
Yeah, that's probably the most exciting thing I think anywhere that we develop, whether it's in Unqork or for Unqork, is when you have an idea of how something might work, but it's never been done, and you get that satisfaction of, "Ooh, that idea really came to
Right.
fruition."
And a close second is having people actually use it, right?
Yes, yes,
I would say I would say that they're both equally, but like on different aspects, right? One is like individual for the team. The other one is uh, having like an actual result that people use is the whole reason why we're here, right?
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you, Eric, for joining me today. We are very excited to hear from you and to hear about the new configuration analysis tool. I'm not gonna try to get all those words, the real-time configuration analysis tool.
Yeah, that's good.
And we look forward to seeing everyone back next week.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Dara. It's been a lot of fun.